You're listening to the AdCast with your host, Eric Elliott.
I'm excited. I got Gina with me today. Gina Michnowicz. I got that right, Gina. And yes. I want to welcome all of our listeners to the AdCast. You know, people who've never tuned to us before. This is going to be the podcast for marketers and advertisers. And on this podcast, you're going to hear from successful people like Gina. We're going to talk about Gina, all that she's done, her company does, how she looks at creative, how she sees marketing to different demographics. We're going to touch on all of that stuff because there's a lot of different brands out there that can actually benefit from this. We're going to talk about some of those amazing clients that you work with, Gina, and I might brag on you more than you may brag on you today. So just get used to that, okay? Because I love what you have going on. So again, today, my guest is Gina Michnowicz. She is the CEO and the Chief Creative Officer at the Craftsman Agency. Remind me to tell you a story about Craftsman, okay? I'm not talking about the tool. The Craftsman Agency believes that by partnering with imaginative brands, that they've been able to create magical moments that stand the test of time, whether they're working on a new brand identity, an experimental activation, or social campaign. Bold storytelling, I love that crosses physical and digital boundaries to leave lasting impressions is their sweet spot. Give the person a raise, whoever wrote that, Gina. I want you to do that for me because that's amazing. Now, Gina, for those folks who've never heard of you, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our viewers and to our listeners out there.
Sure, exactly. I mean, I think you covered the title for sure. So we are a creative shop that really does, at the heart of what we try to do is connect humans and brands together. The humanization of brands, I think, is so critical. I mean, we saw a lot of that in 2020, but we've always believed that you actually need to be really authentic to yourself, although I hate the word authentic, honestly. So we really do not care about the medium. We just really care about the art craft and really what is going to be right for that brand and for that audience. I think I've just been really super vague, but you might have done a better job introducing myself.
No, you've done some amazing work, Gina, and I want to talk about, some of the past projects you've had and some of the familiar names because, they may not know you or I, but they've heard of some of these projects that you've worked on, and some of them are like Cruella out there, The Lion King, and also Toy Story 4, which are huge successes, especially under the Disney franchise. And for those listeners out there, if someone's able to work with a Disney or Disney Plus or any of those arms, a type of service that they provide and what kind of company that they are. That should tell you a lot. Some of your clients are Zendesk, 20th Century Studios, Disney, and Disney Pixar. So you have a thing for movies, huh?
I love film. I love the theatrical experience. I think I was one of those people that was really saddened to not go to the theater and have sort of, started going back. Right. But I love also all of the content on streaming. So, film, broadcast, all of the series, all of those forms of storytelling, absolutely love. And our team does as well. We do work a lot with high technology companies as well, like companies like Cisco, which are definitely on the map. But we love sort of that crossover between tech and media and entertainment and consumer, because then, we're able to actually take those learnings from these different industries and bring them across industries. So while media and entertainment really likes to be first to market on things, tech does not. And so it really helps if we test things within the media and entertainment clients, and then we bring to our really inventive marketers within the tech space. So some of our tech clients really do want to push the envelope and tell stories in a different way. And we take some of those learnings from media and entertainment and make them feel a little bit more comfortable because we've already done something similar. A great example of this is art. We infuse art in a lot of our campaigns. So you saw that in Lion King. We also have been doing that with tech clients. And so we have some tech clients that work with these creators to do something that is just a really bold, different way to show up. And it breaks through.
That's pretty cool. Gina, we actually, in our agency, we service one set of clients now, but we learned that from what we do with them now is from our past experiences. So it sounds
Mhm.
like a lot of what you all continue to do kind of serves you better when you're doing another area, like you said, from tech to film and everything else. It serves you better, and you're able to provide more of a benefit to
Mhm.
the people that you work with, the clients or companies or brands that you're working with, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I think it also gives us this sort of different level of creativity
Mm,
that you're able to draw from as well. So, I mean, Pixar and Disney are some of the best storytellers in the world, right? So,
mhm,
they make us better with that muscle, and we're really able to bring that to some of the other clients. Because so much of the work that we do is at the awareness and sort of organic level and at the brand
right.
level, but a lot of times it comes down to the product level, and we're really trying to get direct response. And that is where, nobody likes an ad that feels like an ad,
Ah,
especially, you know so
you see my hands up. You see my hands
yes,
up, right?
yes, it's kind of like, oh man, like, yeah, definitely. So, I mean,
Well,
I don't like an ad.
yeah,
So,
you're right. I tell brands that a lot, and I want to go into what you're doing for these folks at the organic level without divulging anything that's off the radar and not public knowledge. But that's totally true. Like people, they don't like ads. The only time they're looking for ads is like the Super Bowl. So
right.
it's like you have to be a good storyteller inside of your creative now. Do you see creative just changing that way and kind of being better that way versus being like the scripted stuff to more of the storytelling?
Yeah, I think, what's interesting about creative, oh my gosh, we could talk just an episode just on that.
Let's do it, Gina.
So you have like all of these solutions like Canva, and everyone always says the commoditization of creative, and that will AI be able to do creative in the same way? And at the point where you have to figure out, is that really going to connect? Is that going to draw
Mm,
emotion like you're trying to do? I'm not sure you're going to ever get that with AI, or we basically have, went into the world of Terminator, and there's just a different problem there for sure. So I believe that you really should do less. And I've been saying this for a long time. If
mhm.
you think you are in the commoditization of creative, then maybe you should do less, and what you do is better. And it really does bring that story out, because storytelling's hard. A lot of
Yes.
people talk about it, but very few brands actually do it very effectively at the brand level or at the product level. You have people like P&G, and we just came back from Cannes, which was fantastic to be in person again. And you have like Ryan Reynolds talking about storytelling,
Mhm.
and he makes it sound so simple, but what he does is so genius. And so you have all of those people talking about sort of the beginning, the middle, and the end,
Yeah.
and you have to tug with emotion. That sounds super easy. It's not. So when
I
you
think
talk
some people just make it look easy. It's probably
Yeah,
what it is, you
yes,
know?
exactly, exactly. We try to make it easy. We try to make it easy on our clients. But the reality is that really good creative, it takes a team. It takes a vision from, like, my job as the chief creative officer is really to, what is that idea that we're going to unfurl and bring into the market, that's going to really stand out. So and connect. And it doesn't always mean it has to be emotion, like it's going to make me cry.
Right.
It could make me laugh, while humor is very difficult to pull off a lot of times. But it just has to make me be. It could also be that, oh my God, you understand me.
Yes.
There's even just that kind of level of emotion.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think we just kind of bifurcated our conversation here because it's going to be so good. Because like we could talk on and on about creative, but do you ever find yourself when you just said about being able to storytell and it's not easy? Um, do you ever find yourself dealing with a client or another brand on the other end where they're not receptive to that storytelling because they want to stick to the "we used to do it this way" kind of thing? Have you ever found that happening?
Um, yes. Yes. I mean, I'd say that's a common problem.
Hmm.
Because let's just admit change is difficult, right?
Yep.
And so if you've been doing something over and over again, and I can't, and it's been successful for many years. I mean, I got to tell you honestly, in these big sort of social programs that we run, both from an organic and a paid perspective,
Hmm.
um, they are acting differently. The platforms are acting very differently. We have, all of the tracking that's come off for iOS. There's all of these things, but that isn't all of it. It's how we are interacting with social is changing. And so,
Yes.
it's just how we feel about it. Like I used to love social. I, we have so much turmoil in the world right now that it's hard for me to, on one hand, it's hard for me to look at the person doing the selfie and making everything look all perfect. On the other
Hmm.
hand, I don't like the tirades that I find on like a Twitter.
Yeah.
And I stay off of Facebook because unless, my mom posts something. um, but but it's like that is a great example. If you keep doing it the same way, you are going to see your performance change. And
Hmm.
ultimately, we are seeing things change. And so, getting our clients to kind of bust through and start to tell that story in a different way and to kind of come out of, their sort of safe haven that they've been in for years is really,
Exactly.
really difficult. And we are right now, we have one client in particular that it will help their program to go in the direction, and we will get there. But man, it really is going to take some risk. I mean, it's an intelligent risk. We don't bring things to our clients that are so far out from what their audience is going to want to see.
Yes.
But yes, in a very long-winded way, we are seeing a lot of people that are, that haven't wanted to change and just feel like they have these tried and true messages and sort of ways to come into market, but it's not working anymore. And so they're going to have to change because pain makes people change. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the way to change.
Pain will move you quicker to a decision than anything else. Pain and discomfort usually. You brought up, like AI and the commoditization of creative, and it's funny. Like within 30 minutes before you and I began this episode, I had gotten an email from Yoast, and it's like the SEO that ties into your WordPress, and they said, "Well, introducing this, we have AI for your written content now," and it's and now I see so many of these AI things out now. I saw like this AI company where you type the script and it's a face that actually reads your script for you. And I'm thinking like, does this kind of devalue what true creatives can do?
Yeah.
And does it makes it where there's people on the other end where they think, well, let's put it this way: we put in years to get to where we are. So when you come up with a decision or a concept or an idea, it's not something that you just scratched off and got some dandruff off and just said, "Hey, here's the idea." You've been This has been tried, trued, and tested so that you're comfortable enough to be able to present that. But it seems like this AI that people are getting comfortable with, they're trying to, it almost devalues what we do, you know?
Yeah. I think it's so if you think about sort of AI and automation and all of those technologies,
Hmm.
um, you saw like IT, like information technology, like all the people that handle your computers and your software and your solutions within big companies.
Hmm.
Those people, those teams actually saw all of that AI and all that automation first, right? And there was always this concern that oh, we're not going to be needed anymore. Well, that's not really true. What you do need is you have the automation in place, and then you need the humans to do more strategic things. So
Yes.
if you take that sort of same principle to creative, and what we're doing from a marketing perspective is that you can use AI in certain places where, so we have some, and I won't go into a lot of detail, but we have some places where we do use automation. It's not on the creative side.
Mhm.
But it is, maybe on the analytics side or
Our
something.
process.
Yeah, or process, those kinds of things, to help on the production from a project management standpoint. But
Mhm.
that's freeing us up to do more storytelling, to collaboratively sit and try to figure out, like when we're working on a campaign for Disney, each of those pieces have to tell a really, really succinct story. And depending on the window that we're dealing with, theatrical or home entertainment, it depends on how we tell that story. And so that takes some really great brainstorming. If you're coming in the home entertainment window, they've already told the story in a one way. So we have to
Yeah.
figure out, how can we say it differently that's still going to be really of interest to the audience. So I believe that some of the AI is actually going to free us up to really focus on what we would call more of these high value. And I don't think the brands that are still continuing to churn and burn and use that kind of technology just to spit out the things that you've always done, I don't think that's going to be effective in the long run.
I agree. I always said, good creative just doesn't get spit out of a computer. It comes from creative people. Um,
Yes.
Jay-Z, we all probably know who Jay-Z is. He had a song years ago, and he said 30s is the new 20s. And you actually had a blog that you said 40s is the new 30s. And I love it. Grabbed my attention. I don't want to talk about that if it's okay. So I want to discuss that. One of the things you said was, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z are even more blended with technology, content consumption, and social forces being main drivers of change. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that and how the brands, how this is coming about now, because it used to be this standard. We're going after adults 25-54 was
Sure.
like a standard demo, and now that's all like almost out of the window now, right?
Yeah. Well, I do think a lot of people are still using that method. I think that you're losing and have some missed opportunities for sure. And I think you were touching a little bit on that in terms of the pieces of, from that blog post.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's with sort of all of these different technologies and, even down to streaming and the content that we're watching some of the same content generationally. And, people like Disney and Hulu and HBO Max, like HBO, like, and Netflix to a certain extent are telling stories that are actually crossing over all of these industries. Plus we have the
Mm-hmm.
social platforms, and I mean, there are grandmas on TikTok now, so it's like there's grandma influencers. So it's
Oh, I
kind of
know.
interesting. I mean, all platforms age up. It's like, while it might start with the younger generations, you to get to mainstream, you have to have a cross section of different, of different people, and different ages and generations. And the thing is like, if I get served up an ad that is sort of on point for my age from a demographic, I've got to say, honestly, the brand seems tone deaf, because clearly they don't understand who I am.
Wow.
And I believe in agelessness and sort
Wow.
of being, able to do that and sort of evolve and look at sort of age as a state of mind, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take that from a marketing principle, you definitely should do the same, because you might miss out on, I mean, remember, so do you remember, this is probably not a good example, but InStyle used to have, like, they would have, like, from a magazines, and this is what you wear in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s. And
Uh-huh.
I remember sort of as like you're starting to like inch into these other ages, and I never
Yeah,
say,
and you'd be fearful of what you saw for like 10, 15 years down the road, like, oh
yeah,
gosh,
and I'm
you know?
like,
gosh, I don't
What
want to do
the
that.
F? I'm not gonna wear that ever. Like, so
Right.
so that I think maybe it's always been there, but now because there is a consumption of content and really sort of engagement with brands on these platforms and in these places, and we're all there,
Hmm.
then brands really need to think about maybe if I'm there, that maybe means that my interests are different, and that's what you should be targeting me on.
Interesting. And how about this too? Because a lot of there are some very talented young people who may work around both of us. Do you feel like just being around those young people that they help our thinking to help us to kind of see that ageless boundary when we create and tell stories?
100%. So, I mean, there are certain things that, honestly, we're not going to do anymore. As you get older, you're like, staying out till 3 a.m.,
Oh gosh.
is probably not something that I enjoy doing anymore.
Yep.
I just did it in London and I felt destroyed. So it's, I mean, the reality is that there are certain things that we do evolve from an age
Hmm.
perspective. One of the things that I love about all of the people that are, sort of the young sort of Gen Zers that are coming into our company is they do have a fresh outlook. I mean, first of all,
Yep.
they're not sort of slogged down with all the pessimism that you have after you've been in industry for maybe, a certain, or not, pessimism is not the right word, but, sort of, they just, there's, they're just a freshness. I mean, I can't think of another word that they just bring and sort of an outlook and just also there's almost no fear because they haven't failed and they just
Wow.
bring the idea. And so that is probably part of it. But I think they make us better. And quite frankly, we work with I don't even want to say, so we work I don't want to give a plug because the talent
Do
coming
it.
out of this one school is phenomenal. And but we're working with them, and it's a 2-year program, and the curriculum and how they're coming out, even in their junior year and they're working as interns, they just know so much more than I did when I first came out of college.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I was going to ask you too, do you feel like they also hold us accountable?
Yes. Yes. I would say they hold us accountable, while Gen Z is holding us accountable. My daughter's sort of on the spectrum of like Generation Alpha. She's like right on the cusp of Gen Z and
Hmm.
Generation Alpha. I've got to tell you, Generation Alpha is going to hold us even more accountable than Gen Z. Like
Wow.
she's already holding us accountable at 10.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
So
Oh my
she
gosh.
said, I don't think I'm not going to touch on this too much, but she said, are we celebrating 4th of July this year? And I said, yeah, not really. We don't have really any plans. And she goes, good, because, 51% of our population has less freedom than we did last week.
Wow. I'm telling you, it is that they are holding us accountable, and I think they're helping us see things in a different perspective.
Hmm.
They're making our wheels turn on the inside. I think,
Yeah,
if anything, they're helping spark more creativity for us, Gina. I believe. Um,
definitely.
I truly believe that. Let's talk about like brands, like, we call it like passing the beer test, when they almost can humanize themselves. Like, we have some partners, or we call them client partners, where they may seem very robotic, and we would say to them, be unscripted, just tell your story, because we want you to be able to pass the beer test. Do you think it's harder for brands to humanize now?
Well, I think it depends what you mean by humanize as well, right? In some extents, like in 2020, everybody thought they were humanizing because they were doing these like
Hmm.
in a world that's so like everybody came out with the same music and the same like, and you're like, that really isn't humanizing you. Like
Yeah.
it just, but nobody knew what to say. Like it's a really tough time. And I think we keep finding ourselves in not knowing what to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the humanizing goes a little bit into the same sort of risk taking from a storytelling perspective as well. And some of what we were talking about with creativity
Mm-hmm.
is that in some ways, I think, especially on the tech side, I think they do feel like they can't humanize. Does that make any sense?
It
And
does.
when they want to, or when they try to, they use bad stock photography of us all sitting in a conference room holding our mugs with our computers in front of us. And that isn't quite humanization. Just because you have a person in an ad doesn't mean that you've humanized it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the best way for brands to be able to connect with their audience?
I mean, again, it's always going to go back to what your audience preferences are. And we're not doing it based on age. We're doing it more based on, interests and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's scratching the surface in terms of, so you have like tech is easy in some ways for this, because you have an audience that doesn't like ads,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't like being marketed to. They have ad blockers, and they're, more and more of them, we're seeing them probably come off of social.
Yep.
And so they're getting harder and more elusive, but they're big gamers. They
Yes.
have a lot of sports interests in general. And so there are other places that you can hit. And that humanization actually happens when you meet them where they are in those environments, like
Mm-hmm.
gaming,
A
or
great
you
point.
create a game or something like that.
No, great point, Gina. It's almost like an invite when you come where they are.
Yes.
That's a great point, Gina.
But you have to be careful, right? Because we all went where everyone was in social, but
Mm-hmm.
then we just beat people over the head with the same message over and over again, and that creativity that the lack of creativity that we've been talking about, where it's just somebody that's just spitting out 2,500 banner ads and they all look the same.
Yeah.
So
I always tell people that people behave differently in different platforms. You brought up Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I want to go to that in a second because you brought up the grandma on TikTok. But it's almost like I've seen people, they would, like you said, the 25 different banner ads, and they'd all be the same message, where they would try and take that same message and just duplicate it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
right,
LinkedIn, and each platform speaks its own language, but they're not thinking like, if Gina does not like Facebook and she lives on LinkedIn, I can't give her that Facebook message on LinkedIn. I have to
sure.
give her something that's going to be fitting for LinkedIn,
Mhm.
You brought up TikTok, and I noticed TikTok had this new campaign called TikTok Taught Me. And it's, you brought up like the grandmother and how grandmas are on TikTok now. And it's, what is happening with that platform that you see from a creative level? Because I think in 2020, when we were all in quarantine, we saw so much creativity just explode everywhere.
Mhm.
What do you see as far as like where creative is and how these social platforms will assist with creative, especially TikTok?
So I think we're seeing a different kind of creative on TikTok. I think you're starting to see some people do that on Insta, because there's so much happening on TikTok. It's a much more organic, less produced feel. In some ways, it's almost grainy in terms of
Mhm,
the film.
mhm.
So it's shot on your iPhone, literally, probably. So I think that there is sort of the less production value. We're seeing that work on brands as well. So we're seeing that if you have something less produced, that some of those things are actually performing better than if we went into a studio, for instance.
Wow, more
Film it.
believable?
So it's more believable. It doesn't feel as much like branded content, probably is part of it too. So so I think that there's that piece. And then you have something that a platform that's starting to come up, Be Real, which is sort of the epitome of all of this, is that
Mm-hmm.
you're basically uploading. It tells you to upload. You don't have any time to produce. You might understand what you're going to do, but you're almost that moment in time. What you're doing when it tells you to create the
Uh-huh.
content, so you don't see high production value because it's a much different. It's supposed to be a moment in time. Um, so I think that platform is going to be really interesting. I can't wait to start playing with that too.
With your agency, I want to kind of go back to the Craftsman Agency a little bit. First, I want to know, like, how did you come about with the name, the Craftsman Agency?
So it's a good story actually. So I was talking to somebody on our team that we were just I'd start up another agency, and it was not what we were working on, things that were not, I mean, it was like very data driven. And while I like
Hmm.
data to inform, I'm a creative. I'm not a data person. And so I do think it's important to understand what creative is performing and what's not, but that's
Hmm.
pretty much where I like to stop. So I was just like, I feel like we're just in a hamster wheel. We've lost sight of like creativity just in general. Like the marketers we're working with are not having as much fun. This is supposed to be fun. Our job is supposed to be
Wow.
fun, right?
Right, Gina, right.
That's why I left HR. It was to have more fun. Um, so I think I just was like, I really just think that there's an opportunity for us to have more fun and infuse more art into our campaigns, and like focus on our craft, like be craftsmen. And
Hmm.
she goes, you should go see if that's available. And so I went to my
Wow.
computer, and the Craftsman URL wasn't, but the Craftsman agency was. And so I secured it, and then just kind of went and started to talk to a couple people, and a couple clients and a couple team members. And people were like, you should do this, and you should do it now, because the world needs it.
Wow.
And
Good for you, Gina.
so there we go. I had a board of directors at the time, and they actually didn't support it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to listen to the customer, and I'm going to move. I'm going to move forward with this. And I gotta say that telling the story of the Craftsman it's been a lot easier, because it matters. The mission matters. So.
I love it, Gina. I love that. I mean, tell me about, are you very particular, like, on what brands that you guys would partner with? I mean, because it says you partner with imaginative brands.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we've actually walked away from a couple of, engagements that were relatively large because we could just tell the chemistry wasn't there, and we were going to be trying to push them, but the person, you could tell wasn't going to move, and was just going to
Wow.
stay where they were. And so it just, you don't have to think like us, and you don't have to, you just maybe need to be willing to take a little bit of risk, and we'll help you bring along, and we'll give you some success. And then that's how the trust builds in a client relationship, right? Is that
Mhm.
you win, and then you try something, and maybe it doesn't work exactly what we thought, but we learn and we move on and try the next thing. And so we appreciate clients that really do that. Um, and so we do look at what people are doing in the marketplace at that time. There's a lot in the chemistry meeting that's really important to us. We work with great humans as well. So our clients, while they are imaginative and inventive and want to take risks, um, we also work with just some of the best people, if that makes
Mhm.
any sense. So we
Yeah.
pick our clients on a lot of different levels, actually.
What's your approach? I mean, let's just say you're invited into, a pitch, and it's someone that you want to work with, or you feel like the chemistry there. What's your approach? Which one of the first things that you guys do to kind of connect with them?
So we do have like an introductory meeting, and we kind of try to make sure that it's really a balance between us kind of talking about who we are and sort of, peeling the onion layer back so that they
Hmm.
can see more of, really the essence. Because our website gives you a sense, but you might not really understand from our website really who we are as people.
Right.
Um, and so we try to really leave a lot of room to have the client talk about what they're really visioning. And, it's, if they have a brief, great. If they don't, great too. We can just talk through it and we can kind of develop our own brief. So we tend to be pretty flexible. Um, Once we get into the place where we're like, okay, this sounds like a really interesting project. We
Hmm.
think that there's a great, potential. There's a lot of research that goes into play. Who
Right.
are their competitors, and what are the competitors doing? Because we don't want to show up in the same way, but we might also not want to be so far out there that it,
Hmm.
doesn't relate to their audience. So a lot of research, and then a lot of learnings from what we're doing. And sort of bringing those forward. We can tell if a client really is a good fit for us, honestly. When we do our pitch, we have this this end slide that has got a llama with balloons on it, and it says imagine the possibilities. I mean, it's like, first of all, our art director is just she's so fantastic at finding these images, and just
Right.
so talented. But it just, first of all, puts a smile on people's face. And what we find with our clients is that they almost start using those words. And so they're like, we want to create
Really?
magic with you. And so we're like,
Really?
feels, yeah, yeah. So we actually do have a lot of that. And when that happens, you're in a good spot.
That's awesome. Now, and I love to be able to. I love to hear your story, and how you developed the Craftman Agency, what you're about. I mean, what separates you from everyone else? Because you've been invited to pitch business or be on business, and you've walked away from it. What is that thing that separates you from everyone else?
Our superpower. Yeah, I'd say these are the things. This is the thing that I think we are always, and maybe it's just some of the humbleness of the craftsmen, and the people that we have on our team, um, is that we, really, our superpower, and so many people are going to be able to say this too, is we really do come up with these ideas that are really out there. And I think our ability to take that idea and really connect the dots between all mediums,
Hmm.
um, making sure that it's not showing up the same in every place, like you talked about.
Hmm.
Um, I think that is, I think that's one of our superpowers, because that takes patience and dedication to the craft. And I see it like when we do an editorial calendar and we've got Reddit. The the Reddit copy is for the Reddit audience, and the Twitter
Yeah.
copy is for the Twitter audience, and the
There you
LinkedIn
go.
copy is for the LinkedIn audience. And they all, and the Insta copies for the Insta audience, and so you really do tailor that message to, that might be the same person, by the way, also across all those platforms, but they don't want to be the LinkedIn person on Reddit. They want to be the Reddit version of themselves on Reddit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but that is the craft. So I will say so much of our superpower is just the way that we bring our craft to market.
Has there ever been a project that you and your team have worked on that you're just so proud of? Like we did that. We did that. Like you're just so proud of it.
There are a few of those projects. I will say that the chocolate train, for Murder on the Orient Express, with a partnership between Godiva um, and Fox, is
Hmm.
definitely one of those things. And what I think is funny is we still show that example, because when you build a 10-foot chocolate train with 3,000 Godiva chocolate bars, it
Oh my
stands
gosh.
the time. And first of all, it smells fantastic, but it was
Oh,
beautiful. The artists that we worked with just did such an amazing job. The pictures don't even do it justice. And so still, and we'll show it and we'll have people being like, oh my God, you did that. I saw that in the train at St. Pancras Station. And you're like, I mean, it's what, so that is, I'd say, goes down as one of my favorite. Lion King, we had like 55 million organic impressions working with artists, developing these creations. Worked with Jacob's Food Diary that she used like 5,000 grains of rice to make Scar. I mean, it was just a vision. I mean, it just was gorgeous. And nobody had done that. Now you see a lot of people in a lot of studios doing that with the characters and stuff. And we're like, okay, so we just got to figure out the next piece,
right.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're the trendsetter though. You were there first.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Has there ever been a project where you said, yeah, I could have done better? I'm not so proud of that one. I could have done better.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. We don't talk about this.
All right. Yeah.
We don't
It's
talk
like,
about Bruno.
we don't talk about Bruno. We'll just call that Bruno and we won't talk about
Yeah,
it.
exactly. No, I mean, what I can say about those is that we learn, and honestly, we make fundamental change because of those situations.
Mhm.
And our client relationships are so important to us. And so I literally like hurt almost physically when we fail a client because we know we've put them in a place that, and we don't do this often like
Yeah.
this, and it really hasn't happened, knock on wood, in a long time. But when we have done it, it really is like we just take accountability and ownership for it,
Yeah.
but we make fundamental change in our organization. And one of those big changes was for a small shop, we actually have a true editor on staff, and she is part of our secret sauce. I should probably not say this out loud to people. But yes, but she is fantastic and she makes such a difference in our work product. And that is, as we became the craftsman, that was critical importance. And so a lot of those issues that we used to have, we have processes in place that include her, but then also other ways to make sure that the work product is always what it needs to be.
No, that's awesome. I think I don't think it's a loss. It's a lesson. Usually, is what it
Of
is.
course,
Um,
always.
we all went through. When 2020 happened, the world changed for us all. Some teams that were used to working side by side, they're now remote. Now a lot of the world is remote. I think January 9th, there was an episode on 60 Minutes on how they said it used to be 1 in 7 worked remotely. Now there's 5 in 7 that are working remotely now. Do you feel, or just in your opinion, can being remote hurt creativity?
Hmm.
Or do people have to be in an office to be
So
creative?
fun fact, we've always been remote. You maybe knew that?
I knew that. I
Yeah.
knew that we actually went remote on January 11th. We went remote January 11th, and a lot of it was, uh, you know, it was really, the traffic situations, and, out of respect for everyone's families and also healthcare. But then what you notice was everyone communicated more and productivity was higher when we went remote than it
Yeah,
was in the office. And then we had to think about it. We were like, okay, we were nervous about it because we were thinking, well, oh man, all the relationships that we built, it's gonna just go away. But the relationships we had to figure out were made in between our meetings. They weren't
sure.
made at the building,
Yeah.
and so I say that I didn't know you guys were remote, but there are some people that feel like, oh, you have to be together in order for you to be creative and do big things, which is not true. Not
No.
if you have passionate people on board who are all rowing the boat in the same direction.
Yeah, 100%. I will say that before it became more of the norm, when you were the 1 in 7, it was
Mhm.
really hard to convince a creative person that you could do creative collaboration. But we have all the tools in place too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that makes a big difference. So, video calls are something that we've been doing for a long time. We added daily stand-ups. There's a lot of programs. We have Slack.
Mm-hmm.
So we have all of the technologies. We moved to Asana so that we can have, collaborative project management. We also shifted to Google Slides and being able to do pitches on Google Slides. And
Mm-hmm.
not only did it make the creative process so much, and I, by the way, was one of those people fighting moving to it. And we have I have right hand and left hand person. So on the leadership team, could not run this business without Jean Marie and Kim.
Right.
And Jean Marie was like, why don't we just try it? Why don't we try, Google Slides? And I'm like, okay. It was definitely, and now if anybody doesn't want to do it on Google Slides, I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh man.
It's better. So, and I've also gotten better about brainstorming and getting on calls and doing collaboration and sharing and just, and that actually, we've actually figured out how to do it even better. So yeah, I do think it's possible.
Wow.
I do think it is helpful for teams to get together in person. So we try to have hubs of people in different places so that they can get together. And I will say that the interns and the new college grads, they want to, they want to have some in-person,
Mm-hmm.
kind of collaboration. And so they get together and work at a coffee shop or something like that. But we also are trying to pull the team together at least once a year.
Jennifer, I love hearing about your story and your team. I really do. Do you feel that creative has changed now? Because, and I ask this because I'll go in the commercial end. It used to be every ad had someone who was this model or this perfect figurine or what they thought was a perfect figurine of a person now, and then I saw a recent Target ad where it really compelled me because it wasn't what was typically in an ad 5-6 years ago. It was, they had an amputee in the ad and it was a beautiful person. It was just beautiful people in the ads. They came in different sizes and shapes and colors, and it was, that to me almost seemed like it was more effective than you doing the ad with the Victoria's Secret models, no offense to them, in the ads, but I said to my wife, I was like, there's a shift happening now where they're introducing more of what really looks like the person that they're marketing to now, and really talking to them more. And it kind of goes with what you were saying, like meeting people where they are, and kind of and also who they are as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really great point. I'd say that we saw some of that shift happen with Dove and the Real Beauty campaign. I mean, that really, and believe it or not, that was 16 years ago.
Wow.
So I think, there's a lot of movement and the advertising industry has to be better, right? So because we were part of what perpetuated and perpetuated sort of that image, which we already know is so harmful, especially to girls.
Yes.
But it's like, I think when people started doing that, so did you ever see the Dice billboard where it's like
No, never saw it.
It's like the IT developer guy, and he's like in white underwear, like the tidy whities.
And now I'm going to pull this up when we get off the call.
On his side, and he's like, I mean, it is just making fun of sort of like advertising, and it's clearly like somebody like an IT administrator, and so it's like he's really
Gina, please send me that link. Please send me the link. I want to see that now. I almost can envision it now.
Yeah, so there are some people that have played with it, but I do think more and more we are seeing people because everyone is beautiful in their own way, and so having the ability to to be able to show and also to be able to show like we all love differently, and we all, all of those. So I still think, we're in Pride Month. I still think that there's a lot of room. And I think some people have really shown like same-sex marriage really effectively in advertising. There's been a lot of shift in that. I think one of the next things that we'll battle is ageism, because I think ageism is still very real also in advertising. So I think more and more we are going to see real people in ads, and I agree with you. It is shifting. I mean, there's still going to be beautiful 6-foot tall runway models that you're going to want to show clothes. But I love the fact that sometimes like Nordstrom or some of those where they're showing, they actually have different body shapes now that you can actually change based on what your body shape is. So I think that we're going to see that, because it's more than just an ad, right? It's all of that e-com and everything.
Wow. I mean, it's not just an ad, it's influence now. Big time. Wow. I want to go into what we call the lightning round.
Okay.
And we're wrapping things up. And in the lightning round, I'm going to ask you about specific mediums and content, and you just give your short answer on them. So like I'll ask you, what do you think about radio, the state of radio today? And you can just kind of answer that as well. All right.
Okay.
So you let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. You ready? Let's go, Gina.
I'm a little nervous, but I'm ready.
Don't be nervous. You just knocked this interview out of the park, so you have no room to be nervous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's talk about radio, Gina. What do you feel about the state of radio right now?
Well, if nobody's commuting, and you've got Spotify and all those other platforms, I gotta believe radio's in trouble.
Okay. Television, linear television.
Linear television will continue to see a decline. How you view what is on linear television right now is shifting, and already is shifting. You'll see it more and more. You'll watch it when you want to watch it. So it won't go away completely in certain respects. And people used to always say that, I'm going outside of the lightning round. I feel like people always say you want to watch sports live, but I don't know. That might be changing as well.
Wow, that's a good one. I haven't heard that one before. Newspaper.
I think the news is a critical importance. I think the medium and how you read it is going to change. Less and less paper, more and more online.
Okay. Out of home, billboards.
Going to get bigger and more immersive.
Interesting. Social media. And then what's your go-to social media?
Social media is going to be held more and more accountable. And the brands are going to hold for brand safety, and, moms are going to, be more protective of their children. So I think that social media, I'm not ready to, I think we've got a problem with social media. I think there are studies that show that people are sadder when they're watching and seeing, being left out and those kinds of things. So I think social media is going to make some fundamental shifts. The question is, how do you do that positively? My go-to is still Insta, and then TikTok.
I agree with you. I don't want to show my age here, but
well, remember, age is timeless.
Years and years ago, if you weren't invited to a sleepover on a Friday night in school, you wouldn't know until Monday. Yeah. Now, kids who are not invited to parties or sleepover, they find out within minutes.
Yeah.
With social media. And so I do think it has some kind of effect on kids now, and also it'll have an effect on them as adults if they don't kind of change the way they use it, or if they're not held more accountable. So I really appreciate what you said, and I think that there's a lot of truth to that. How about direct mail? I say the same thing. I just can't spell what you just said.
I just can't even. I think the thing that went through me was like, why?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I checked my mailbox. It was election time. I checked my mailbox and it was just pouring with the flyers. I was like, oh my gosh, no one believes in this anymore. It's so traditional, but
it just goes straight into recycling. And I just always feel so bad. I would say from a direct mail perspective, something that is really tailored and personalized for someone that like a client appreciation or something like that as direct mail, which doesn't really fit into what I think you were meaning, but that maybe is the only exception to the rule, but it's not.
I agree. And Google ads, banner ads, online advertising, how effective is that?
Do you even see those anymore?
Wow.
I mean, I have banner blur like there is no tomorrow.
Wow.
So if you're going to be doing an ad personally, I think it's got to be, again, immersive, motion, something, but even that is irritating. So
yeah,
I don't know. People are going to have to figure out how to do that better, because I don't think I notice them most of the time.
I think you're right too. I think it's almost like seeing a billboard. It just becomes part of the road sometimes,
Yeah, unless it's like truly brilliant. You're like, that is good. Like the dice one, or the Spotify, the one that used data that was, and out of home can also be on sides of buildings and things like that. And I think we're going to see more out of home in different places.
I do as well. I agree with you. Now, how about streaming services? How much has streaming services just changed the landscape of creative and entertainment?
Significantly. The sort of speed to get content out is maybe one of the benefits, and maybe one of the downfalls of this.
It is.
Because
right.
There is this who's got the the latest and greatest. Streaming services are going to see churn, so they're going to have to have tent poles. Disney and HBO Max, and maybe to a certain degree Paramount, I think have the greatest ability to hold, because they're the studios are used to making great content.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a real hunger for content too, and my wife and I, we were sitting there. How you just have those days where you just say, I just want to veg out. I don't want to do anything except just watch some television or whatever. And this is when Ozark came out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We watched the entire season in less than 2 days. And so I said to my wife, I said, here's what I want you to pay attention to. They can't make content as fast as we can consume it. It probably took them 2 years to create that, 18 months to 2 years to create that season of Ozark. And we consumed everything they did in a weekend.
Yeah.
So now they have to make more and more. So I think you're right. People like Disney and some of the other studios, they are on Disney Plus, Paramount. They're all in great positions for the future. Because I think people are just going to run through content so much. So that's the end of the lightning round, and you did great, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you.
You did great.
Thank
So I want to start closing this show out, and I want to definitely thank my guest, Miss Gina Michnowicz, for being on the show today. I want to thank all of our listeners for listening to the AdCast, and thank you for giving us your most valuable asset, which is your time. And if you feel this podcast has been a help to you or could be a help to others, just make sure that you subscribe, go out there and give us a positive rating. And I want to come back to Miss Gina, and I want to thank you again, Gina, but I want to give you that opportunity to tell people how to find you, find your agency. I want them to stalk your company in a good way.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate the discussion, and really enjoyed it. So fabulous to start my day with you. The Craftsman Agency can be found at thecraftsmanagency.com, and we are on LinkedIn and Twitter and Insta, and sort of making entrees into TikTok very soon. And I am also on LinkedIn as well. So and Twitter and Insta, but
that Awesome.
Yep.
Just awesome. Just an amazing creative, running a great company. Make sure you give her a follow, give them a like when you see them on social media as well. And just look at some of the amazing things they've done. Gina, you've been an amazing guest, and you're welcome back to the AdCast anytime.
I would love that.
To our listeners, I want to thank you again. This is the AdCast.
If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to give us a 5-star rating.